What is up? What is up? Welcome in. It is another edition of Timeline T. I am your host, Sam Duzume Jr., aka the Sam D. Welcome to the YouTube channel. Welcome to the live stream. Appreciate all the feedback of those who have been able to tap in, whether it's live or on the replay or on the clips. A lot of you might be new here, but I say all the things your favorites can't say. And that is a moniker that I've come up with over the years, as I've been a sports media vet for about 14 years, going on 15 years this year. So kind of been in and around a lot of things, seen a lot of things, done a lot of things. So when it comes to this sports stuff, when it comes to this media stuff, this is a channel where I like to merge those two things and break down some information. Because sometimes what you're being told isn't actually what's happening. So this is where we dissect the news and reports from the timeline, and I give you my POV on it, and you can always engage in the comments. As you know, we did a Lamar clip yesterday from the segment from yesterday's live stream, and you know, a lot of interaction there. So let's keep that going. Whether you're bringing it live on the replay, you know, I duck no smoke. Take all comments, and you know, I'm always here for it. So today, as you see here, we have deadline blues. Are there teams that made move at the trade deadline that are regretting it? We'll get there. And we have a Lamar Jackson update. And this story is going to continue to evolve. And I love the fact that everyone is out in Indianapolis for the Combine, because that leads to our last story, Combine T. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of executives. There's a lot of scouts. There's a lot of training staff that are out there in Indianapolis exchanging information, trying to figure out who's shooting up draft boards, who's falling down draft boards, so on and so forth. The Jalen Carter story, we will get there as well. So there's a lot to get into. We might touch on a little bit of Daniel Snyder. We were talking about it on the tail end of the live stream yesterday, and I was able to do a little bit more reading, a little bit more investigating in terms of reaching out to some people. And yeah, this story is going to get really, really interesting as the days go along here. But we shall start with the deadline blues. Trade deadline blues. We thought there were a bunch of teams that won the NBA trade deadline. And one of those teams that we thought won the NBA trade deadline was Los Angeles Clippers. And let's just go ahead and jump right into it. If the button will work for me. The button doesn't want to work for me now? Okay. Well, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 0-3, as you could probably see in the title of this pod. I call everything a pod, so don't mind me there. So when it comes right down to it, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 0-3 with Russell Westbrook. They jumped out the window. They, capitalized on Russell Westbrook in the buyout market, and they were able to bring him in. The Miami Heat were allegedly involved. The Chicago Bulls were allegedly involved. But ultimately, by persuading from Pandemic P, PG-13, Paul George, the Los Angeles Clippers bring in Russell Westbrook. And while the first two games, he was efficient. In the first two games, he looked to be like, oh, okay, even though I think he should not be starting, but he was able to start for the Clippers. He played relatively well, but they still lost. But last night, I'm not saying we got a regression to old Russie. All I'm saying is that I don't know if this Russie starting thing is actually going to be a thing if the Clippers are really trying to be taken seriously in the Western Conference. And that's going to be something we need to really watch. Really, really watch. And I would love to see some of the news and notes that have been taken, that are being done in regards to what do you do now? If the Russie thing doesn't work, if the Russell Westbrook thing doesn't work, what do you do if you're the LA Clippers? What do you do? Because there's going to come a point where someone's going to have to make their mind up. Someone's going to have to understand what's happening on the floor. And Ty Lue has done a great job play calling. He's done a great job in load managing and trying to understand how to deal with Kawhi. I'm sure that has not been easy. I would love to know the real deal in terms of how to understand where Kawhi's body is at this point. Pause. In regards to, the knee. The knee's never going to be good again. You have to load manage that knee for the rest of his career. He knows it. The Raptors knew it. And for sure, the Spurs knew it. And, whether you want to hold them culpable or not, I'll let you tell it. But, Kawhi certainly, feels away, and I think we have everything straightened out now. Let's see. Go to the screen now. Yes, we can. All right. So the Clippers are 0-3 with Russell Westbrook. And, as simple as that sounds, as simple as that stat may just be, and say, well, can't blame Russ for everything. Well, let's see if we can actually pinpoint what's the problem with the Clippers since Russell Westbrook has gotten there. Let's go down to the box score. And now you lose to a T-Wolves team that is, trying to figure themselves out. This is not a good Timberwolves team by any stretch of the imagination, but this is where we're at now. And if you're trying to navigate who's the problem or what's the problem, you kind of have to look at the fact that this defensive team that the Clippers were thought to be, because they have Pandemic P and Kawhi Leonard, the defense has not been that great. Now, I don't know if we want to just pinpoint it to other positions on the floor. I don't know if we want to do all of that. And I'll move this over a little bit, or let me just zoom out. Oh, it's going to be one of those today on the stream. Okay. So bear with me. I'm trying to get this navigated so y'all can see everything on the screen as I'm seeing it. I know that was a thing yesterday. So when we have it here, we see, well, Minnesota. Let's see who went crazy for the T-Wolves. Nobody in terms of points. And this was without Karl Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniels, Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert. I mean, they had 6 guys in double figures, including a man's Naz Reid, who is, a favorite of some. But let's go down to the Clippers and let's focus in on this. Russie gives you 14, 10, and 7. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, that's a good stat line for Russ. Here's the thing. If you watch the game, some of the ball-dominant ways kind of creeped back in. And we talked about it. I've talked about it on my podcast, the DSMD podcast, and I've definitely talked about it here on just this YouTube channel in general. Russie needs to give up the rock. And as much as I think they thought he could be an answer at point guard, I am surprised that they really think he's an answer at starting point guard. To me, Russell Westbrook is not a starting point guard for a good team. So you see him here, 5 of 11, even hit 2 or 3 threes. So you're like, well, what's the problem? The problem is you need to watch the game. If you watch the game, some of Russ's decision-making looked to be erratic Russ. And defensively, we just know he's just not, he never was that great of a defensive player, but now as his athleticism starts to wane, it's even worse now. So you have 2 guys in PG and Kawhi who could still lock up defensively, and even Morris twin, as you see, he got some run. But in regards to, Zubac is all right, but we're not going to go crazy for Zubac, but you're asking for Russie to be the 3 in the big 3 and 14, 10, and 7 in only 27 minutes. And again, if you watch the game, I wasn't really that impressed with his play. You're not getting a lot from that. You're not getting a lot from Russell Westbrook, and I don't know what to tell the Clippers as they try to figure this thing out, but they're not moving in the right direction of the standings. As we go here to the standings, and, if you check this out, they're sliding. They were a 5, now they're down to a 6. And I know all these games in the loss column are very slim, but in regards to what we were expecting from a team that has Kawhi and PG, and the fact that you bring in a Russie, and I think they also did well in regards to Bones Highland. I'm very high on Bones Highland. I'm not sure what the plan is there. Apparently, he's not going to get any real run in terms of starting, which I think could be problematic. But, I thought they had some pieces there. And look at who's in front of them. You got the Dubs in front of them. You got the Mavericks, and we'll get there because they're part of this deadline blues too. And then you go down even further. You have the Blazers, the Pels, the Lake Show. Clippers can mess around here and find themselves in the play-in. If any of these teams get right underneath them, whether it's the Mavericks, whether it's even Minnesota to a certain degree, as they proved last night against the Clippers, or even the Pels, if the Pels ever get healthy, and then with Damian Portland and the enigma that is the Lakers, any of those teams can make a run, and now the Clippers are looking at the play-in. And that's not something you would think of when you have 2 guys in Paul George, Pandemic P, PG-13, and boardman Kawhi Leonard, you wouldn't think those two guys leading a team, you would be in the play-in. And you can't necessarily blame it on injuries this year because Kawhi has been way more consistent. And the role players have been way more active in terms of availability. So the Clippers are in trouble. I'm going to go ahead and say it. The Los Angeles Clippers, if they keep, playing with their food and tricking off games and giving up a whole bunch of points for a team that has two dominant wing defenders, or do we need to say maybe PG's not elite defensively no more? And do we even need to go even further and say maybe Kawhi Leonard's not elite defensively no more? I'm not willing to jump out that window. I'm going to have to keep up and watch way more tape to kind of go back and rewatch a few games to see if that's the case. But I watched the game last night. I didn't see a drop-off defensively from either player. So that's going to be something to monitor. But as we go further down, another team that might have some trade deadline blues is the Dallas Mavericks. And they go and get Kyrie. And I think they're now 1-4 with Kyrie and Luka playing. Because remember, they had 2 wins, but that was without Luka and only Kyrie. Now Kyrie and Luka are together, and it's been a lot of mid. It's been a lot of mid. So you see Kyrie's stats here. You have 16, 9, and 5. 16, 9, and 5 for that. And I'm not sure what you expected, but I damn sure haven't expected Kyrie to not be able to shoot. I mean, this is now back-to-back games where he's been trash shooting the rock. He had a bad shooting night against the Lakers on Sunday, and he follows that up with 0 for 4 from 3. This is a guy who shoots roughly around 40%. And then he shoots 7 of 18. Now, if you take away those 4 threes, he shot 50%. The problem is you can't do that. You have to include those. So the bottom line is that you have Kyrie shooting rough from the field for a second consecutive game, and there's just no fluidness. And you see Luka, I've been asking what's Luka's usage rate. Is it going to go down? It was trending towards 39, possibly heading into the mystical 40 territory that's only been done by James Harden and Russell Westbrook. But now with Kyrie, I said, oh, well, maybe this could be the only thing that could stop him from being so ball dominant. How about 25 shots last night? 25 shots, almost 38 minutes. As you see here, 6 dimes, 8 boards. I mean, this is old Luka. See, now Kyrie's supposed to be the second fiddle, right? But he's not supposed to be this kind of second fiddle. 16, 9, and 5. That's not what Kyrie's supposed to do. Kyrie's supposed to be a 20-plus, 25-plus guy. He still should be able to get off 25-plus, even as a second fiddle. If you could do it with Kevin Durant, and you could do it with LeBron James, you should be able to do it with Luka, right? Do the Mavericks have remorse? Trade deadline blues, trade deadline remorse, whatever you want to call it. Do the Mavericks feel differently about trading for Kyrie Irving right now? And let's go down to this usage rate. Again, only 1 game sample, but you see that number, right? 37 for Luka. Now, just that 1 game, 23 for Kyrie. That's extremely ball dominant. And you see that defensive rating too, right? Let me see. Y'all can see that. Yeah, y'all can see defensive rating 127, 125. That's Swiss cheese. You see Justin Holiday trying with all his life, trying with all his might at 115, trying. Amazing. There's going to be something there. You know what? Let's just go ahead and look. Let's go ahead and look at the Luka. Let's see what the Luka usage rate is. Up, it's 38. Still hanging on at 38. So now let's go to Kyrie. Let's go to Kyrie. Kyrie, usage rate. Okay, so it's dropped from, it was 30 in Brooklyn, which is ball dominant, to now 27. So Kyrie's ball usage rate has fallen. It seems like that's going to continue to be a trend. And as you see in his career, when he's at his peak, Cleveland years, you could debate whether that was his peak. I think the Boston, Brooklyn years were the peak of Kyrie. So you see at his peak, he was 30, which is ball dominant. Now he's at 27, lowest of his career by the numbers. So that Dallas thing is going to be something to watch. We thought it was going to be something, but it turned out to be maybe mid. I don't want to jump out the window and say it's done. It's not going to work. It's a wrap. But when you look at the schedule and results here for the Dallas Mavericks, they only got one dub, and it's against the Spurs. So we know that don't count because the Spurs have lost like 16, 17 games in a row. So that dub don't even count. So in regards to, they lost to the Kings in OT, they lost to the Timberwolves, they lost to the Nuggets, they lost to the Lake Show, and now they lost to the Pacers. None of those teams are mid. All those teams are playoff teams or teams in the playoff hunt. What does this say? Now, a game like the Pacers, you would assume they should be able to do work. Problem is Tyrese Halliburton, who I've been high on even before he got drafted. I was leading into the draft. I was saying Halliburton is going to be one of those ones. He went crazy. Miles Turner went crazy. We know the Mavericks lack size, so that's not that surprising. But Halliburton going crazy. But then again, when he's being guarded, I feel sorry for Reggie Bullock and Justin Holiday because they're basically running all around the court. And then you see THJ, he's having to provide some sort of scoring. So Jason Kidd's going to have a rough thing to figure out here because he has to figure out a rotation of where can I put in anybody who can play defense. Because right now you just have Reggie Bullock, but you need Reggie Bullock to be able to shoot threes. And that's why giving up Finney Smith in that trade to get Kyrie was kind of a thing. It was like, I see why you did it, but do you understand that that's hurting how your roster looks and your team formation down the line? That's a real thing. And I know Finney Smith doesn't seem like a fancy name or a fancy player, but he had a role there. Another 3-and-D guy. And that's why you see Justin Holiday here is getting some run because now they're depending on Justin Holiday to kind of fill in some of that Finney Smith role. And no disrespect to Justin Holiday, but I don't see that from him. So you have Reggie Bullock, who now has to play 30-plus minutes a night, hit threes, and lock up defensively. That's a lot from a role player. That's a lot from a vet. So now you have to figure out how to get THJ, whose only real contribution is offensively. So you have to figure out how to get THJ in there. You're trying to stretch the floor with scoring with Kleber and Christian Wood. But where's the defense? I mean, they have a Morris twin, but, you can't really depend on that too much. But Dwight Powell, the enigma that he is, like, there's not really a lot here. And that's why I know Kyrie wanted out, and it was a business choice for him. So, and even Kevin Durant spoke on his podcast about how, even though him and Kyrie haven't spoken, he understands that it was a business thing, a business move for Kyrie, and he just wanted the best for him and his family and all the stuff that you're supposed to say to protect your relationship with your mans. But in regards to, he just wanted out. I mean, we know the Nets weren't going to trade him to LA because that's where he really wanted to go. Like, let's be clear. Kyrie Irving wanted to be a Laker, right? But because Brooklyn refused to do that, well, where's your plan B? And his plan B turned out to be Dallas? I mean, I guess. But on paper, it sounds amazing to put Luka and Kyrie together. But after this sample size, do y'all think this is looking good so far? Let me know in the comments because I'm not saying I'm over it. I'm not saying it's a wrap. But I think for what we're talking about, there's not much to go off of in regards to how does this look when it works. That game against the Lakers was supposed to be like a marquee thing to figure out and navigate in terms of, oh, this looks good. This can work. But then you went out there and you saw Kyrie, who led the league in fourth quarter scoring, and then he was not really that strong in the fourth quarter. But now we have the next team, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. Your Los Angeles Lakers, they go out there and they take a L to the Memphis Grizzlies, a L that we all kind of expected, especially with LeBron James being out indefinitely. But here's the thing. I asked, was Anthony Marshawn Davis going to step up in LeBron's absence? If you don't know, I am a huge Anthony Davis supporter. And yes, he did that, 28 and 19 and 5 blocks. But there was someone who kind of didn't understand what it takes to be Anthony Davis and what type of numbers he can put up and what type of acumen he has. And that man is this guy, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq went out there and, says that Anthony Davis has fell off. That's the quote. You see it there. I don't want to say this disrespectfully, but he has fell off. Shaq and Anthony Davis. Then Shaq, if Shaq would have just watched some games or just read these numbers, it's just one tweet alone. Anthony Davis this season with LeBron, 25.1 points, 11 boards, 2 blocks. Without LeBron, 28 a game, 16 rebounds, 2 blocks. And if you looked at it last night, he did as much as he could. Could he have scored a little bit more? Sure. I mean, he gave you 28 and 19. I said on the live stream yesterday, he's going to have to drop 40 pieces. And even if we give him the 12 points to get that 40 piece, that's still not enough to get the dub here. So, the Lakers are in trouble. LeBron being out, and strange enough, D'Angelo Russell being out is really going to put things in perspective for the Lake Show, because now the depth that we assumed they had after the trade deadline now is looking sus. It's looking real sus right now. And when you look at what they've been able to do, Lonnie Walker played. So we see that there. Lonnie Walker, welcome back to the rotation. I'm not mad at that. I've been a proponent of, I don't know why Lonnie Walker's not getting more run. See, I thought he would go with Rui in the starting lineup with no LeBron, but he went super small, and I don't know if that's good, even though Vanderbilt is a big. He's 6'9", he's a hybrid guy. He's like a Kuzma, but, he doesn't have the offensive skill set like Kuzma, but he's way better. He's way better defensively than Kuzma. So you have him as kind of like that hybrid 3-4 type player in Vanderbilt. And they got AD at the 5. And then you surrounded him with 3 guys who can, in theory, shoot. Why Troy Brown keeps getting minutes on this Laker team, I'm not sure what Darvin Ham is seeing, but Troy Brown, to me, should not be getting that much run. He should not be this high up in the rotation, especially when you have Lonnie Walker right there. Lonnie Walker, to me, should be starting. Put Lonnie Walker in there. I would continue to go big with this in this starting lineup without LeBron. You're going to have LeBron. LeBron's out for at least 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks before he can even be evaluated. So if I'm the Lake Show, I'm looking at it in the sense of I'm trying to surround Anthony Davis with help. You can't do the Bron thing of, well, let's surround AD with shooters. You can't do that. I think you go Lonnie Walker and Rui in the starting lineup, especially with no D'Lo. I don't want Schroeder starting. Get Schroeder out of there. Go Lonnie, put Rui in there. Get Troy Brown out of this rotation. Like Troy Brown Jr., sorry, man. Like, I'm good on that. I wouldn't even be mad if you go Reeves. If you really want to go to a lineup where you can really stretch the floor, Schroeder out. Schroeder and Troy Brown Jr. out. Austin Reeves, Lonnie Walker in. I would still find a way to get Rui in there. I know Malik Beasley's kind of entrenched himself as a starter, so maybe I can have some leeway with that and say fine. But at minimum, Schroeder, Troy Brown on the bench, and some combos. Yeah, and go Reeves and Lonnie Walker. I don't know if, Darvin Ham has a thing against Lonnie and starting him. I don't know, but I haven't seen anything over the course of keeping up with the Lakers this season that makes me think Lonnie Walker, especially in this case. If D'Lo's back, it makes sense. D'Lo's a better point than Lonnie Walker. But in terms of right now, Anthony Davis needs help. And Lonnie was great last night. And this is not just reading the box score. Like, if you watch the game, Lonnie was great last night. So why can't he get run? Russie's gone. Pat Bev is gone. Why is Lonnie Walker not getting run? even now he still can't start? There's no D-Lo. He still can't start? Weird. Very, very weird. Okay. Let's move on. So that was that. We'll move on to, there is a Lamar Jackson update. And we got into this heavy on the stream yesterday, put up this segment. A lot of people were engaged in the comments. A lot of people were trying to, get their hot takes off. And I'm always here for that. Don't be afraid to get your takes off here. It's a safe space. You will get roasted though, but it is a safe space. So let's go ahead and just pull this up. Shout out to Dove. So, update on Lamar. The NFLPA is advising Lamar Jackson to stand his ground in negotiations. The quarterback market was, quote, reset when the Browns gave Deshaun Watson the fully guaranteed contract. He's being told not to move off that. Now, here's why that last quote to me is the most important quote. Because there was a lot of chatter in the comments yesterday when I was talking about Lamar in regards to, well, Stephen A said, and I'm just like, well, I don't really care what Fraud A. Smith says, the overworked and underpaid, now hiding behind a paywall, Fraud A. Smith. I don't really care what he says. I know logic. I know common sense. Yes, Fraud A. Smith went out there and said, hey, someone in Lamar's camp hit me up and said, we never asked for fully guaranteed money. We're not seeking fully guaranteed money. And to me, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Now, I'm not denying that someone may have reached out and told him that. I'm saying if we're going to give that any sort of truth, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Because if you're working a job and you hear one of your coworkers got a raise, and you think you've done a better job at that job than your coworker, when it's time for your raise, you're going to ask for more than what your coworker got. That's what this is. For some reason in sports, we seem to just throw that logic out the window. Deshaun Watson got 200 let's go ahead and pull this up here. Let's make sure it fits right in the screen. Yep. Deshaun Watson got $230 million fully guaranteed. That is a co-worker of Lamar Jackson. Now you can give me the narrative like only your teammates, you only work on the same team. No. They all work for the NFL. They all work under the shield. Therefore, that is a co-worker. Lamar Jackson's co-worker, Deshaun Watson, got a raise, and a hell of a raise. Now, whatever stipulations you want to put around it and the situation that made that happen doesn't matter. The bottom line is that contract was ratified and approved by the NFL. Therefore, the bar now has been raised. 230 mil? Okay. If I'm Lamar, and I will continue to say this, and if I'm proven wrong, I will spin the block on this very live stream and admit to it. But it would be silly to not even attempt, because that's the narrative now that Fraud A and now others are riding with that clip of like, well, his camp's not even trying to get fully guaranteed money. What sense does that make to you? Do you really need an agent to tell you, hey man, a contemporary of yours got $230 million fully guaranteed. You're the next high price top tier QB to come up. Let's not ask for $250 million. Let's not even ask for $231 million. Do you think you really need an agent, a representative, a manager, a financial advisor to tell you that? You don't think Lamar is sitting at the crib and saw that Deshaun Watson thing come across the scroll and said, he got what? Oh, Birdman, rub them hands together. It's time. It's time to cash out. So to sit here and to act like just because there's been one report of Lamar Jackson allegedly not asking for fully guaranteed money, so now that should stop all the talk. No, I deal in common sense. I don't deal in hearsay. The hearsay is whatever. I know logic. If I'm working and someone's getting paid way more money than me and I think I'm better than that person at the same job, when it's my time for a raise, I'm going to go in there and ask for more bread. But if y'all just want to keep believing any report that comes out, but this makes sense from the NFLPA. This makes a lot of sense. Look at the money here. Remember that 160 we were told about Kyler? You see how magically that's popped up to 189.5? That 160 number was sitting out there forever. Now all of a sudden it's 189.5. Now is that funny money? Is that extra 19.5 funny money? That's 29, right? 29, extra 29.5 million guaranteed all of a sudden magically popped up on Kyler when this whole time we were told 160. You tell me what's what. You tell me what's what. This thing ain't going nowhere. This story, the narratives around it, it ain't going anywhere. So much is being made of this Lamar Jackson thing that it's extremely polarizing. His skill set is top tier. He can be a top 5 QB, if not higher. That to me is conservative saying he could be top 5. You could give me the narratives of his health. You could give me the narratives about his accuracy. Give me all those narratives, and I'll just tell you who's been his number one receiver over the course of his career. And once you go through that lineage, then you can stop talking. Moving on. Combine T. So unfortunately, it starts with really, really negative news. Don't have too much information in terms of specifics, but defensive lineman from Georgia, potential number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft, Jalen Carter, has an arrest warrant issued for him for reckless driving and racing. And this involves the 2 students, and they was one player and I believe an equipment manager or something to that effect. Pardon if that's incorrect, but 2 people affiliated with the Georgia program lost their lives in a race, reckless driving. And apparently now we're getting information that Jalen Carter was affiliated with that. And if we go to the information specifically, there is a lot to navigate. As we see here from Kirby Smart, who's released a statement. See if we can get this big here. Oh, no, it cuts off. Okay, so we'll just stick here. The charges announced today are deeply concerning, especially as we are still struggling to cope with the devastating loss of 2 beloved members of our community. We will continue to cooperate fully with the authorities while supporting these families and assembling what we can learn from this horrible tragedy. Okay, not much there, pretty much what you would expect. But here is the real part. The announcement of the investigation, and he is being implicated by police for racing in the crash that took the life of former teammate and a UGA staffer. So it's getting real interesting. And both charges, as we continue to get information here, both charges against Jalen Carter are misdemeanors. So now, where does this put the Chicago Bears? As much as we want to focus on, obviously there was a tragedy involved, and whatever involvement we have, a lot of this information I'm going to assume will come out. Well, I guess we have some information here. Can this be read? Okay, yeah. So depending how deep in the woods you want to get here. So we have the investigation here found that Chandler LaCroix, driver of the 2021 Ford Expedition, and Jalen Carter, driver of the 2021 Jeep Trackhawk, were operating their vehicles in a manner consistent with racing shortly after leaving the downtown Athens area at about 2:30 a.m. The evidence demonstrated that both vehicles switched between lanes, drove in the center turn lane, drove in opposite lanes of travel, overtook other motorists, and drove at high rates of speed in an apparent attempt to outdistance each other. Evidence indicated that shortly before the crash, the Expedition was traveling at about 104 miles per hour. The toxicology report indicated that LaCroix's blood alcohol concentration was 0.197 at the time of the crash. Investigators determined that alcohol impairment, racing, reckless driving, and speed were significant contributing factors to the crash. And again, 2 people lost their lives. So that is tragic. That is horrific. That is not something any of us want to see. And now we get the aftermath. And this is where sports and life kind of intersect. And then because we're fans, supporters, in my case, an analyst and a media commentary person, now we can't help but look at things from alternate angles. It was like, okay, the direct thing, Jalen Carter, arrest warrant. Wow, that's really shitty. But now in the sense of, well, now how does that affect his draft stock, right? That's one angle. How does that affect his draft stock? Another angle, well, now if you're the Chicago Bears and you have the top pick, now what do? You've already come out and said Justin Fields is your quarterback. So now if you want a quarterback that bad, you got to trade up to 1, or you can try to go for that number 2 pick, but then you know that the Texans are most likely going to take a quarterback with that 2 pick, even though with D'Amico Ryans, maybe that changes. But in regards to leverage, this trade leverage for the Chicago Bears, did it diminish with this unfortunate news that's been announced of Jalen Carter? Are the Bears now worse off? Because how do you trade? How can you get the maximum for that now? We're like, well, stay there. Who are you going to take? Will Anderson? Do you have the guts to still take Jalen Carter at the top spot? Because the theory was the Bears could trade out and probably still get Jalen Carter. Now, with this news, who knows how far, if any, he might tumble down some draft boards. Who knows? Who knows? Now there's a humongous question mark, and there's a humongous character concern. I mean, with this warrant and him being culpable, there's wrongful death lawsuits, there's civil suits, there's a lot of stuff that can go along into this Jalen Carter thing. What can you trust? What can you trust from the information that we've gotten so far? All we know is just the facts in regards to what we have so far. But in regards to what the Bears do now at number 1, I mean, there's a few people that I can look up in terms of the timeline to kind of get a feel on what the Bears might be thinking. But they're more concerned about getting down to the cap space and things of that nature. But right now, with what's been said about the Bears and Jalen Carter and how that was kind of a synonymous type deal with what has transpired in regards to this arrest warrant, that could be shaky. That could be really, really shaky. And it's unfortunate. It's a bad spot. It's a bad, horrific spot. And you don't wish that on no one. You don't wish that to where someone with his skill set, his ability, we have seen D linemen become more and more valued in today's NFL. And with, the Aaron Donalds of the world, or even Jordan Davis of the world, or Chris Jones from the Chiefs, and all the ones that the Eagles were able to throw out there, Joseph and House of Spear, Sue and Fletcher Cox, and just the D lineman. I won't say the D lineman is being reborn, but there has certainly become a re-emphasis on the defensive tackle. So to have a defensive tackle with the skill set of a Jalen Carter now have a humongous red strike, a gigantic red flag on his draft record, that's going to be a real interesting spot. And what do you do if you're the Bears or if you own any of the top picks? Let's go ahead and get this draft order set up. Let's see. This should play nicely with the screen. Let's see. All right, good. If you're any of these teams. Okay, Chicago, do you still do it? Houston, would you do it? Arizona, would you do it? Those are all 3 teams that, in theory, could use Jalen Carter. Is that something you would do? I'm not sure. Indianapolis, would you do it? I mean, I could say something about him and Jim Irsay, but we'll let that lie right now. Seattle, Detroit, Vegas, like these top 10, these teams at the top 10, man, if y'all let the Eagles snatch him up, if he falls to the Eagles, I mean, that's kind of where things get shaky. Like, I could see the Bears being scared, right? And they're trying to trade out anyway, right? So, but even if they stay pat at 1, highly unlikely, but let's say they stand pat at 1, they don't take him. Whether that means Will Anderson, I don't know. Whether that means take a QB and try to flip him, I don't know. Houston is probably taking a quarterback. Arizona, I mean, Will Anderson could be something there. You know, you're looking at potentially, I mean, with no Kyler Murray for at least the first half of the year, I mean, you could in theory, but I doubt they would do it, especially after giving him $189.5 million guaranteed. The Colts, you would think they would be in position for a QB. You would think. Will Levis? Wouldn't be me. Now, Seattle, that was some tea that also came from the combine. Allegedly, Seattle is, exploring how things go with Geno. Geno's out here running around trying to get the bag. And if he gets too good of a bag offer, the Seahawks are like, all right, we'll just go in the draft and get one. We'll go in the draft and get a replacement. We could figure that out. I mean, because here's the thing. You got Daniel Jones running around trying to get 45 M's. You got Derek Carr out here trying to get 35 M's. Like, there is a lot of QB bread just being thrown around. So if you're Geno Smith, why not? If you're Geno and you could go get something in the range of Daniel Jones money, then why not? Because this is probably his last bag. This is his last bag. And to have, Pete Carroll come out here and do this, the Seahawks would definitely still consider taking a QB high in the draft, even if they re-sign Geno Smith. So even if they re-sign Geno, they would still, sitting here at 5, potentially, or maybe here at 20, they could take a QB. Anthony Richardson at 20? If he's still there. That's how crazy this draft is. Anthony Richardson might be gone by pick 20. That's how wild. The Seahawks might have to trade back up to try to get Anthony Richardson. But that's where this whole thing is coming to a head, because there's so much tea being put out there that it's just kind of like, well, what do you do? What do you do with the information being given down this timeline? Because again, Daniel Jones, the Giants are nowhere near QB Daniel Jones' asking price of new contract. That new price is 45 M's. 45 M's for Daniel Jones. The team is, quote, set on a certain number they believe Daniel Jones is worth, and Jones camp is above that figure. Big shock. What do you think that number is for the Giants, Daniel Jones? If Derek Carr is 35, if he said I'm on 35 plus, and I'm the Giants, and Daniel Jones and his team, his financial advisors, his representatives, his agents, all the stuff that Lamar doesn't have, but we don't want to trust Lamar's numbers. But Daniel Jones gets to walk into an office with his team, with his reps, and say, yeah, we want 45 plus. And no one says a word. No one jumps out the window and says, how dare Daniel Jones ask for that kind of money? No one says anything. But Lamar, allegedly or not allegedly, asked for guaranteed money, and now he has to have his camp spin the block and spread their word through Fraud A. Smith about whether or not they asked for that guaranteed money. They got to run it back. They got to cop please. But Daniel Jones gets to walk around asking for 45 mil and no one says a word. Do you think the Giants would even give him Derek Carr money? Do you think they would even give him 35 mil? And again, I ask y'all the question, if this is the money that mid quarterbacks are getting, what the hell do you pay Lamar? And that's always been my point. Like, you can give me the pushback in regards of, oh, well, you can't really pay this guy this kind of money just because Deshaun Watson got that money. Yeah, that sounds great. But guess what? Daniel Jones is asking for 45 M's. Do you think he's going to get that? Probably not, but the compromise is going to be way closer to 45 than not. Derek Carr's asking for 35 plus. Do you think he's going to get that? Maybe, but let's play the game. Probably not, but it's going to be a lot closer to 35 than not. So how come Lamar, allegedly or not allegedly, asking for similar money guaranteed to Deshaun Watson is such an unfathomable concept? How? It doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me. Let's keep going. So, there's some tea here. This is why we call it timeline tea. So, there is a new coach in Arizona, Jonathan Gannon. Is this Rich Gannon's kid? I'm not sure. But he was a former DC for the Eagles. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson on reports that Jonathan Gannon on what went wrong in the second half. And then C.J. Gardner-Johnson said, you ain't put us in position to make plays. So he's kind of calling out his DC. And maybe that goes into the fact that, the Eagles had the same play ran on them, that little whip route that the Chiefs saw the Jags had success with. They ran that play about 6 times, and damn near all 6 times it worked on the Eagles. So maybe that's what C.J. Gardner-Johnson is referring to. Who knows? But he put that out there. You ain't put us in position to make plays. And then what do you know it? The tweet was deleted very shortly thereafter. So this is why we have this stream, Timeline T. This is the T that C.J. Gardner-Johnson doesn't want you to know that he tweeted that out. But we have people online who are doing good work, making sure we stay on top of this stuff, because this is the information. This is where you get players, and sometimes it's agents, sometimes it's managers, sometimes it's reps, family members, whatever. But this time we're getting it directly from the source of a player, starting Eagles safety, calling out his former DC after taking an L in the Super Bowl where they got a whip route ran against them every which way and they couldn't figure it out. So this is why this stream exists. We talked about the Geno thing. We got players retiring. This Brandon Cook story is interesting. Multiple teams interested in trading for Texas receiver Brandon Cooks. What do you think about that? Brandon Cooks? Are we really on that type of time? I don't know what we're doing with Brandon Cooks. Leonard Fournette is a free agent. Asked for his release, and he has gotten it. But this is what this stream is here for. We've bounced around. We've talked about a lot of different stories. One thing I would like to wrap up on is Ben Simmons. So we will come off the Combine Tea, and now we're just spitballing as we wrap up here on the 3rd episode of Timeline T. I am your host, the Sam D. If you haven't already, when you pull up here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support. Ben Simmons, man. The Brooklyn Nets are planning on shutting down Ben Simmons for the remainder of the season. Per sources, Net brats are disappointed with Simmons and looking into ways to offload his contract this summer. And again, sources added his inability to find a role within the offense and lingering knee issue are said to be contributing factors to the decision. So let's go ahead and look up Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons is another guy that's extremely polarizing, but now it's getting to the point where people don't even care. In Philly, we still cared about Ben, maybe because that team mattered more than Brooklyn, especially right now. But I think in the fact that he was drafted there, he was meant to be part of the process before Joel just took the whole nickname for himself. He was thought to be a part of the process and part of the linchpin of that organization. So to watch him kind of crash and burn in real time and all the drama that went around of whether the team wanted him to come back and Doc Rivers constantly kicking him out of practices and all of that, it really just became a soap opera. And now you've seen just in 42 games with Ben, 7 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. Now, here's the funny thing. Outside of the points, all of his numbers are more or less the same. So it's kind of like, I mean, they got Ben. Like they almost got what they asked for. They got what they traded for. Because again, like this is something I've always held high on is like the Sixers wanted more out of Ben. And there was nothing in his game, nothing in his attitude, nothing in his acumen that told you this guy's going to go balls to the wall to improve. He's always just been, hey man, this is who I am. This is what I am. This is how I roll out of bed. I hoop because I'm nice at hooping and I could get a bag out of it. He never struck me as, oh, I'm going to be a gym rat. I'm going to be getting shots up when everyone is sleeping. I'm going to be up putting the work in. I mean, maybe he did that to get to the league. Maybe he did that to get to LSU and to then be considered the top overall pick. But once he got there, that was pretty much it. And what you got at his apex was a 17, 9, and 8 guy. 17, 9, and 8 at his apex. So when people are killing Ben all the time and says, well, why can't he get better? Like, well, he doesn't want to get better. It's real simple. And what the Nets traded for is a guy that, you know, at his apex with them is 7, 6, and 5. Not that far off outside of the points. Field goal percentage is roughly the same. We still ain't shooting no threes. 2-point percentage is roughly the same. Effective field goal percentage is roughly the same. Free throws is down. So you can put a linchpin in that. Boards is just one less than his average. Assist, 2 less, max. So they got the same player. He just hasn't even scored enough. But again, you put him with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, he's not going to score a lot. Even with them being able to create opportunities, and clearly there's some things upstairs that we're not privy to in regards to what he thinks of the game and maybe where his confidence level is at. But the enigma that is Ben Simmons, I don't know what this does in regards to his trade value. His trade value is basura. I don't know what you do with the type of money you see here that's left on the deal. Look at the money that's left on this deal. 33.5, 37.9, and 40.4 mil left on this deal. I mean, good luck. Good luck trying to trade that. Good luck. I wish you well. I wish you well. And you know, I was in favor of the trade. So I'm not sitting here trying to run from any smoke. I was in favor of the Ben Simmons deal just from the state of I thought a change of scenery was necessary. And Philly fans were very happy that they were able to get rid of Ben Simmons. But here's the thing, Philly fans. If y'all don't win a chip this year and the beard goes back to Houston, then what the hell did you get out of it either? And that was kind of my point about it. Like you took on the Nets problem and got rid of one of your problems, which is cool. Because, you know, next man's trash is another man's treasure, right? Not necessarily. Not in sports. Sometimes the other man's trash is trash too. And I think you're going to get this if this whole James, you know, let me see if I can find this real quick. I'll come up the screen as we get to wrap it up here. But let me see if I can find this James Harden stuff, because there's a lot of tea about James Harden potentially, you know, going back to Houston is, you know, pretty much a done deal and whatever. And oh, wait, we got more Clippers stuff coming down the timeline. This should be fun. Oh, I think he's on the podcast. PG, Pandemic P, is on the podcast, and he's talking. Paul George admits he likely can't be the best player on the championship team. Who wants to tell him? Who wants to tell PG? We never thought you were going to be the best player on the championship team, bruh. Like, who told you that? Who lied to you? Did you have to look yourself in the mirror to understand that? Like, who told you that? Did Kawhi tell you that? Who told PG that? Yeah, that's crazy. Why on earth would PG now finally admit that he likely, that's not even that strong of a statement. He's not fully believing that statement. Paul George admits he likely can't be the best player on the championship team. I had to be honest with myself. PG, We were honest with you. Even when you was in Indianapolis, we knew you couldn't be the best player on a championship team. So, anonymous executive on Russell Westbrook joining Los Angeles Clippers. I fear them much less now. Yeah, that's really a thing. And the Clippers don't look as good. 0-3 with Russie. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. He cannot be starting for this team. I talked about it earlier in the stream. If you want to catch the replay of that, definitely check out the earlier part of the stream. But I broke it down how Russie really just doesn't fit as a starting point guard on a really good team anymore. He could be a starter on a mid team. He could be a starter on a bad team. He can do that. He can run the numbers up and stat stuff with the best of them still. But in terms of a good team, a legitimate team, a Larry O.B. seeking team, he is not a starting point guard anymore. And I know he is Paul George, man, from that 1 year, a year and a half in OKC. But no, Steve Ballmer, Tyrone Lue, Steve Frank, you can't let Pandemic P talk you into bringing in Russie and then starting him. Talking the team into bringing a man's in and then having him come off the bench, okay, cool. But to make him come in and then start him when you made a deadline day deal for Bones Highland, and while Bones Highland isn't the sexiest name in terms of starting PGs, I'd much rather go Bones Highland than Russie right now. Did you watch the game last night? Did you watch the game? Problems. But on that note, I got to go. I got to hop on ESPN radio and do an hour talking about Tennessee and everything going on over there. If you want to tap in at the Sam D on the Elon app, a.k.a. Twitter, the link will be pushed out over there. But yeah, appreciate y'all for pulling up. Catch the replay. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll be right back here tomorrow on Timeline T. Peace.